Hey, hey, hey. So, that was a weird start for that. OBS was running and telling me it is streaming, but Twitch didn't play my stream. And AJ, thank you very much for finding out the solution. And the solution was to uncheck a specific part in the setting and check it again, apply it, and now it works. Things are weird. Well, AJ, can you give me some kind of a feedback that I'm actually broadcasting, or am I fooling myself now with the stream? Good, CD Radar, thank you very much for the reaction. So weird. First I fooled myself with the clock being set 1 hour, and I thought that the scheduling countdown thingy on Twitch does this on its own, but it doesn't. Well, I only had a heart attack because I all of a sudden shouted in my microphone. I'm sorry, I hadn't handed in. Well, sorry for that. That was a bumpy start. All good, you are on, AJ. Thank you very much for telling me. Good, then. Spoždění. Well, unfortunately, I do not know this word. Actually, I understood 2 words on your stream the other day, CD Radar, when I was listening. That was better than was to be hoped. Delay, yeah, spoždění, Verspätung, everything, and technical problems. Der Grund sind technische Probleme und eine Reparatur am Zug. Ale is a word that I always understand very well in Czech and Slavic languages, and the other one was the word for lights, světla, if I got it right. Not because I knew the word, but in my Duolingo course there was something that was telling me what is light blue and light green, and it's something like světle modrý, for example, or světle žlutý, světle zelený, and so I understood it. No, your English was great. I understood very, very well in English what you explained, and the system was actually really an interesting system. I wasn't aware that your metro trains had such an interesting system with coasting curves and ATO parts. Well, before this stream turns into a Czech language stream, we should maybe go to the United Kingdom and drive a train and assume a train from Peterborough to Doncaster and talk about... No, please not turn it into a Czech language stream. Well, I'm not qualified for a lot of stuff that I'm talking about, but talking about the Czech language is probably one of the things that I am especially not qualified for. So, better keep it to driving virtual trains. So this London King's Cross to Leeds was the one that I wanted to pick, but not in October, because maybe I want to have some light. The 21st of June should be the best day to get as much light as possible. And why am I back to the East Coast Main Line? Because I wanted to talk about the signage for the power signaling for the AC electrification signs, coasting signs. Yes, I understand That was just a simplified description. The system is much more complex than CD Radar about his safety system on the metro trains. But it was a good thing to get the idea. Maybe we can dig deeper into that sometime. But today we are talking about English, British signage. Here is our Azuma class 801 train. It is 801 tells us that it is the purely electro version of the train. It's an electric train set only. Maybe someone will tell us, well, you have your diesel engine on it. That is true, but this is unlike the class 800 and the 802 and other trains from the AT300 family. This is only an emergency diesel engine that allows us to creep back if we for some reason dropped out of the electrification. The other trains actually have a proper prime mover diesel engine that makes them real bi-modal trains. They can go with diesel and with electrification and switch from one to the other. And this leads us to the topic that we are talking about today, the signage for the electrification. Before I'm actually trying to start the train here, I just wanted to have a look at the signs that I'm talking about, and they are scattered along the line. They don't really have a lot of significance for us because we don't need to react to it. But this sign, for example, we know that from the TGV driving from France. It has something to do with the pantograph. So why cannot I go with my camera, because it is the 3 camera, I guess. And the 3, not the 3 camera. I need the 3 camera, not the 3 camera. The Zuma. Here, for example, here's it again telling us March. And I don't tell you too much when I tell you that this does not mean that this sign only applies for trains driving during the month of March, but it is a location. And other signs, for example, that we can find of that kind, if we go along this line here, it's not quite busy, isn't it? We find signs that tell us about dead sections, neutral sections, and unlike what we have talked about in Austria, in the United Kingdom we do not really need to switch off the power manually. Oh, that takes a bit. Here with a directional arrow telling us that this sign only applies to going to the right. And maybe I find one of the neutral sections that we have here. We will pass a lot of them actually, but just for getting into here, there was that sign announces that a neutral section starts right behind the sign. Mind that it is the black lines on the white ground telling us this is actually where the neutral section starts. Typically they are announced with an inverted sign, white line on a blackboard. We will talk about this on the presentation in a couple of minutes. And the good thing is, the good news is, or the bad news, depends on whether you want to have some more gameplay or whether you want to have it convenient. The train usually does this on its own. You don't need to switch off the main circuit breaker, as we did that on the Talent in Vorarlberg or on the Vectron in Dresden-Riesa. No. Here the Azuma or whatever electric train you have does it on its own. And how can the train do that? There are like inductors in the track here. I think those are the ones. And they signal the train, tick, power off, main circuit breaker off, then the train coasts along through the neutral section, and there are again some inductors here, and they switch it on again. So typically you don't have to do anything unless the signaler tells you that those inductors are broken or anything else went wrong, then you actually need to switch off the main circuit breaker on your own. Yeah. This just for getting into the topic of the signage. So the signs that we want to talk about today, yeah, you really don't need to do anything with the services that I've found so far in the game. There are some special signs for switching from diesel to electric mode and the other way around, but even that is typically done automatically. But there is still some signage on the track, so in case that this does not work, it reminds the driver that she or her or he has to do it manually. So let's get into the service here. Have some lights. Open the doors. Since I have watched some videos during the week made by a YouTuber called Virtual Rail Driver about driving the Electrostar properly, I finally wanted to start using this brake hold, the hill brake button, properly when operating this train, but it actually is a bit annoying because the shortcut that goes with it is on a weird setting. So brake hold, where is it? Brake hold increase and brake hold decrease would be Control Shift, and then this kind of brackets closed. On a British or Anglo-Saxon keyboard layout this may work. On a German keyboard layout you don't really find that, and you can't assign it a new because it just doesn't register. So if I use, for example, the F4 key, bind it, it doesn't do shit. So this is still one more application of this problem with that changes to the keyboard layout do not save, just like with hiding the speed, the maximum allowed speed. Did I turn on my safety systems? I think I did. I think I did turn them on, yes. Vigilance device. So, do we know now if it is actually prototypical that the vigilance device goes off when we are sitting in a station, as long as the reverser is on, even if it is in neutral? I'm not quite sure. On some trains there was a minimum speed that the train needed to travel before the vigilance alarm would come on. Let me add on that topic, LZA is also able to turn off the drive on the dead section and even automatically turns off a specific car separately because our cars are all connected to the third rail. That is another interesting fact about the safety system used on Prague Metro, LZA, and even for a specific car. Interesting. So, we're starting junction signal. That means we have to stay below the 25. Here, 25 for going right. And this service that I pick stops in Grantham, and then it passes without stopping in Newark, and then it's supposed to stop in Retford, I think, before we get to Doncaster. Oh no, I accelerated too fast. If I... Do I not have... Oh yeah, I've got 2 sets. Well, I picked the services with the 108/1 because I wanted to drive a 5-car train. And the 108/1 are 5 cars. And the 108/2 are the 9-car trains. But now I got 2 of the 5-car train sets. Okay. This is why accelerating at this point got me into speeding. And you might have noticed they fixed the speeding scoring system. Before one of the last updates, you only got docked if you were actually caught speeding the moment that you were awarded the points. And now you get docked if you went over the speed limit even before, and then you will get docked the next time that you get awarded points. There was an undocumented fix to the scoring system. Might have seen one of the silver on black signs, or the overhead catenary that was applicable for a line that was going to the right, I think. Actually, when you're doing the Class 66 freight services on this line, here was one that belongs to the line that is going here to the right. You can see it on the crossovers. Yeah, when you're doing the Class 66 freight services, then you're going slower and you can actually have a closer look on those signs, and well, but they are even less relevant for you because the Class 66 obviously goes all the time on its diesel engine and never picks up any energy from the overhead catenary. And those Class 66 freight services, they are actually great for night driving in rain, in fog, to calm you down after a long and bothersome day. But they are quite lengthy. Especially if you have to wait like 20 minutes on a siding or on a loop lane. Did you play the Vectron since the last update, CD Radar? I did not really check what various fixes they did on it. Yeah, there was an update and they said on the update note I actually scanned through to the Vectron and I wanted to know what did they do to the Vectron, and there was like some various performance fixes, or I forgot the exact word, where it was some fixes at any rate to the Vectron. So hopefully to the lights and stuff like this. Again, one of those signals that stay on double yellow until you almost pass it, and then they switch to green. Flashing green part here. It's actually an interesting idea to have trains running with 140 miles. Guided by signals. But they had a system... Well... For me, at the moment... The stream is totally low res. Is that for you as well? There's something weird going on with the Twitch connection today. First, it does not transmit at all. And then it looks like... Oh! CD Radar says he plays Vectron all the time. But you did not really realize that there was an update to anything. Okay. Okay. It is good now? Okay, for me it is still weird. What? If it is good for you, then perfect. The lights are strange at sometimes, yes. And there was this bug with the Befehl 40 program, when you were holding down the Befehl 40 key and hit a 2000 Hz magnet, the Befehl 40 light or the indicator did not turn on. And they promised to fix this. And there were some performance thingies that William Green was talking about. Also for how the brake handle reacts. But I think this was not supposed to come into this update. I have to admit, I was hoping that the updates are coming a bit faster with more substantial updates than just some minor adjustments to masteries, or whether sitting in the top level seats in the introduction to the Antelope Valley line fulfills the requirement or not. But hey, and the lights on the Vectron, yeah, especially if they are running AI services in Austria. They always had their front end lighting on the side that was connected to cars and the other way around. CD Raider says, actually my only game content since Train Sim World 4 came out is driving in free roam with Vectron on all German lines. Alright! That must feel a bit like after the zombie apocalypse, when no one is around anymore. Well, actually, I have been playing the East Coast main line a lot recently. I mean not the free roam, but on timetable with my own spawn train. Ah, I see. Yeah, my bad. I understand. Then it is not after the zombie apocalypse. Then you're just wedging in the timetable to interact with the AI trains. Yeah, I understand that. I get that. Maybe I should do this a bit myself to find out some weird signaling constellations there. Unfortunately, nobody answered to my question whether someone has a list for all the entries on the signaling systems in the editor. Yes. With the free roam, you're able to use various platforms and lines. Yeah, maybe I would like to do this more often too. But I was actually quite busy. During the past weeks, so... I more or less only played what I wanted to do on stream then. Good evening, Spectre. I am quite well now after a bit of a bumpy start. I hope you're doing good. So CD Radar has been telling us about his adventures with the Vectron, especially München Hauptbahnhof. It is like another dimension, these far left platforms. Yes, actually, if you're traveling on München Hauptbahnhof and you have to go to those far left platforms to... It's typically the Bayerische Oberlandbahn and some S-Bahn trains that are... No, S-Bahn is typically in the tunnels underneath, but typically those trains that take you to the very rural area in southern Bavaria. And you actually have to walk quite a long distance to get there. It is such a good loco that it is a shame for me. It puts shade on other good content like Suma Train, which is so good too, but I just drive Siemens. Yeah. Well, I think it would be fair to perk up the Alstom Trax 3, Alstom Bombardier Trax 3 locomotive, and maybe give us a proper modern Stadler locomotive. Because at the moment Siemens is ruling the game. I should probably slow down a bit because we have to stop in Grantham, right? Well, maybe even a bit more than just slowing down. Spectre says he will download the Vectron as soon as he gets back home. I'm very curious about it. Will change the Dresden Risa experience. It will change it, definitely. A lot. Ooh, whoa, 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 whoa. I should have slowed down much earlier. Luckily we have 10 car trains, so we can go all the way to the end of the platform. Oh, why are we so early? We are almost 10 minutes early. I wasn't speeding that badly, did I? So we have actually quite a wait in front of us. It's 10 minutes. But still, I cannot do this. Maybe I will go back to the... So do I have my presentation still? Everything is confused because of the problem with OBS at the beginning of the stream. But at least we can have the presentation here. So, topic today is AC electrified lines, signs, or signage, or whatever you want to phrase that correctly. The signage that is connected with the overhead catenary electrification. And again, talking about sources, last stream, it is again from the Rail Safety and Standard Board's Train Driver's Handbook, where I got my information from this part. The signals, obviously, where the signals are shown, and this time that is a module called the AC Electrified Lines, and there in a couple of sections they tell you how to use those signals that are given in the signal part. And the first thing I want to look at is what we had just in the introduction of the stream. If you have a neutral section in your overhead catenary, so this is a part where there is no juice on the overhead catenary for whatever reason, to separate two networks or whatever reason there might be. We have talked about this on the Vorarlberg stream, where we talked about the signage there, and where a driver actually has to switch off the main circuit breaker manually for entering a dead section, a neutral section, or Schutzstrecke as it is called in Vorarlberg, and switch it on afterwards. Also on the new version of Dresden Risa, where we have those signs now and the neutral section, and if you run into it without opening the main circuit breaker before, then the low voltage protection relay will open and switch off the main circuit breaker on its own, but this is not what you want to happen, so the driver would have to do it on her or his own. So what do we do in the United Kingdom with it? And we have some signs introducing this neutral section, and they are called neutral section signs, obviously. And we have those signs quite a lot on the East Coast Main Line in the game. You see them. This is the white version, white board with the black lines, and it more or less symbolizes a line that is disconnected at this point. Yeah. I think this is what the symbol is supposed to tell you, that the line that is going straight there is not going through, but it is disconnected here. And it is called the neutral section indication board, sometimes referred to as the side sign, because it actually stands shortly before the neutral section actually starts. And it comes with a sign that announces it. This is the approach sign or the neutral section warning board, telling the driver that she or he is approaching a neutral section and has some time to react to it. The good thing if you want to drive conveniently, the bad thing if you look at it from a gameplay experience perspective is that you do not actually have to open the main circuit breaker on your own, but the train is doing this for you. And how can the train do this? There are inductors that are track inductors for the automatic power control, the APC system. And with those inductors, the train is picking up the signals from those inductors and is switching off the power, the main circuit breaker, on its own and on again when the train is through the neutral section. Only if there is some kind of a defect, the system is not working properly, then the signaler can tell the driver that she or he has to perform a manual power switch off procedure according to whatever rules apply to the train that you are driving. But in our implementation of the East Coast Main Line, we don't need to do anything. What we can see in the game, nevertheless, are those signs: the black version as the warning sign, approach sign, and the white version as the sign that tells you that the neutral section starts here. And you can also see those track inductors. I think at least that those are the track inductors as like grayish blocks in or next to the track. And what I have not witnessed so far is that the train is actually switching off power in the game in these sections. So the line voltage line does not turn off. You can't see it in the screen that tells you about the traction status. So I'm not entirely sure if this is prototypical, if it is just not implemented in these sections, or if it is what happens in real life that you don't actually see this happening. But I think that the line volt light should turn off in these sections and on again when you're through it. So that's those signs. That more or less corresponds with the main circuit breaker off, main circuit breaker warning signs, and we don't have an equivalent of the main circuit breaker on sign because typically the train is doing it on its own. Other set of signs that is in the rulebook are the so-called coasting signs, and not to be confused with the coasting boards. What is this upright white diamond that is put up sometimes and telling you that it is typically the point where you start coasting for a stop at the station? Spectre asks, is there no sign at the end of the neutral section? There is no sign specified in the rules, at least I have not found one in the RSSB train driver's handbook. I think this is because typically the train turns on the power again on its own. So, and if you have to perform a manual power switch off procedure, then you probably need to know at what section you can turn it on again. So probably the signal has to tell you at what point you have to switch off, and at what point then it is safe to turn the power back on again. But neither in the train driver's handbook nor in the sectional appendix, we will talk about this later, I have found a sign that tells you that the neutral section is over, unlike the signage in Austria or in Germany, for example. But I was already going about the coasting signs. Those are the signs more or less that tell you when to lower your pantograph and coast as an electric train, and when it is safe to raise the pantograph again. In their Spectre we have a sign that tells us where it is safe to raise the pantograph again. And let's say we have a section where we need to lower the pantograph pantograph down section or pantograph lowered section. And this, when you read in the rules, is typically connected with the idea that there is something wrong with the overhead catenary there, that there is something broken, something hanging down, something hanging in the overhead catenary. But it is still not so bad that you have to stop all trains from passing this area, but it is still okay for the trains to pass it, but they have to lower the pantograph and coast through this section until there is enough room and free time to fix this. And for that, the signaler can call these locations, and they need to be marked, or they need to be marked under certain circumstances at least. It is the rules provided actually if the driver can identify this the section without doubt and pass it with not more than 20 miles per hour at this point, then it is, according to the rules that I have read here, the section 14 in this AC electrified lines modules, actually okay to just tell the driver at what point the pantograph needs to be lowered and at what point the pantograph can be raised again. If not, if it is not evident where this section is, then you would put up signs to tell the driver that at this point the pantograph needs to be lowered. And if you are familiar with the French signaling and the French signs, or have seen my stream about the TGV and the power changeover signs, you will recognize this sign at once because it is used in the French system as well. Here, if it is if it is used in this horizontal fashion, and this tells you pantograph lowered. And correspondingly, if it is in the vertical fashion, that means raise the pantograph. So at this point the pantograph needs to be down, and here the pantograph can be raised up again. And if the train at this point here is not going faster than 20 miles or 30 kilometers per hour, then it is enough to put up those signs. That's why in the rules they are also called the 20 miles per hour, 30 kilometer per hour pantograph signs. Then this would be all the signage that you get, here to lower and here to raise. If you want to allow the train to coast faster through this section with the pantograph down, then you would have to warn the driver in advance that they are approaching a position where they have to lower the pantograph, and you would use this sign. I have not seen it in the game yet, not even on the East Coast main line. It is a triangular sign that announces that the pantograph needs to be lowered. This is why we have this sign for the lower pantograph again, and we have two flashing white lights like on the emergency indicator, the Dalek thingy that we have talked about last week. And this advanced lower pantograph sign would be put up in a distance of approximately 400 meters or 440 yards before you get to the lower pantograph sign, so that you are warned. And those signs are then called the high-speed coasting signs. For raising up the pantograph again, if you're not going faster than 20 miles per hour or 30 kilometers per hour, it is okay to raise the pantograph anyway. And typically with the high-speed coasting signs, you can be sure that you can raise your pantograph at any speed up to 80 miles per hour, 130 kilometers per hour, sometimes even higher if your special instructions permit you to. But if you're in excess of this speed, then you can't raise your pantograph. And then there can be a certain situation where, for whatever reasons, for the state that the overhead catenary is in, or for whatever is there, it is not safe to raise the pantograph anymore at this relatively high speed. Then you can encounter a sign like this. I have not seen it in the game yet, but it is in the rules. So this is this sign with a red cross on it, and it tells you do not raise pantograph anymore. So if you did not manage to get your pantograph up until you reach this sign, then you have to slow down to 20 miles, 30 kilometers again, and then raise your pantograph, or you stop, and obviously then your speed is reduced to less than 20 miles per hour, and then you can safely raise your pantograph and go on again. So for high-speed coasting areas, if it is safe for whatever reason to pass this section here with more than 20 miles per hour, then you would have to put up the extra signs, and then you need to know that you can raise the pantograph again at any speed up to 80 miles until you pass this sign, and then you have to slow down again. Never seen this in the game, but it is in the rules, so I took the liberty to discuss it at this point. And those are the signs that are used in the driver's handbook. And the interesting part was for me is that some of those signs are used on the East Coast main line in a slightly different way. Not as coasting signs necessarily for something is wrong with the catenary, but as permanent signs to signal a power changeover. The interesting thing about the Class 800 trains, not the 801 that we have, because this is a purely electro train, if we let alone the emergency diesel engine that we have on board, but the Class 800, 802, 805, 810, they are all trains that are bimodal, so they can go on diesel or on electro traction. And sometimes we have obviously points where we switch from diesel to electro or from electro to diesel. And this is again performed automatically. So in the game we don't switch, we don't have the train for it, we are not running across parts of the track where we would need to do it. But interestingly enough, we have some signage for it on our represented part of the line, and it was interesting for me to find out what this signage actually is supposed to tell us. So the automatic power changeover, or not the APC for the automatic power control with the dead sections, but the automatic power changeover, this is why this small O is here, is signaled in a certain way if you are switching from electric traction to diesel traction. They put it like this. And now the source you have seen is changed. Now I got my knowledge from the London North Eastern Route Sectional Appendix from Network Rail, module LM1, and I think we will have a look at the Sectional Appendix later because it is a very interesting source. It gives you a lot of information about the route. And there is more or less a part where they tell you about special signs and signaling that are used or is used on this part of the track. And on page 7C, for example, they tell you how automatic power change over electric to diesel is handled. So when you're running electric and going on to diesel, obviously you need to lower your pantograph and more or less start your diesel engine to be able to go on. And it is performed typically automatically, automatic power changeover with a balise. I have not been able to find a photograph of an APCo balise, what it looks like, but it is called an APCo balise, and the idea is that the train runs over the balise, picks up the signal, and then lowers the pantograph on its own and switches to diesel traction mode. Nevertheless, there is some signage connected with it. Power changeover reminder signage, electric to diesel mode, especially important in case that the automatic system does not work. And according to the sectional appendix rules, this only applies to really bi-mode trains, class 800, 802, not for our 801, what is a purely electric train, let alone the emergency diesel engine that we have on board. So for the 800 and the 802, the 805 and the 810 are not running on the ECML as far as I know. So the sectional appendix only talks about the 800 and the 802. We would use this sign, that is typically the lower pantograph sign. Would make sense because we are switching from electric to diesel, we have to lower our pantograph. And it is called here a lower pantograph changeover sign. And it tells you that in case that the automatic changeover procedure does not work for whatever reason, you must begin with the manual traction changeover procedures, but only if the APCo didn't work. So this reminds the driver that in case that the automatic system does not work, you have to start with the manual traction. Obviously, this is not anything that happens in the game. But nevertheless, it's interesting to know, at least for me, it was interesting to know what those signs are in the game for and why we have them and why it is safe to ignore them on our electric train typically. And most of the time, those signs are not standing about on their own, but they are connected with additional signs. And the rules in the sectional appendix, they say that additional information can be given together with this sign. For example, a directional arrow, that would be this sign that typically tells you greater than or smaller than, and it tells you to what direction this applies. So if you're getting this, then typically this means that the lower pantograph changeover sign only applies for the diverging line to the right, and obviously it can also work for the left if the sign is reversed. And then sometimes you can get a location name. I have spotted the ECML sign in the game. Then we have seen in the beginning of the stream an additional sign of that kind telling us March, what obviously is also, or what probably is, assumably is a location name around Peterborough. And then sometimes they can give you well, an information about what classes of trains those signs are applicable to. These are the three things that are named, but it is not limited to, so there can be additional information on those signs according to the rules in the sectional appendix. So that will be the signage for changeover electric to diesel. If the automatic system that is actuated by the police does not work, you get the reminder sign that you have to lower your pantograph manually and switch to diesel traction. What will be the reverse procedure? Automatic power change over diesel to electric. Again, you would get an APCo police for it, so that the train switches off the diesel engine, raises the pantograph so that the train can go on with electric traction again. And here, as a rule, there is no signage at all. But the rules in the sectional appendix say that reminders or prompts can be installed. No examples are given, but probably signs of that kind could be used so that at a certain point the driver can be reminded that the pantograph needs to be up at this point, and at some point it might not be safe anymore to raise the pantograph when you're traveling at high speed, so you need to slow down if you actually want to transfer to electric traction. Why do we not need this here? Most probably because if the train runs on diesel traction, even though there is an overhead catenary available, there is not really much harm done. So if the train stops at any point and they see, okay, the automatic power changeover didn't work, well, so what? So we probably wasted some diesel, but there is not a big problem. If you're switching from electric to diesel, at a certain point there is no overhead catenary anymore, so we are running out of traction force, and we have a problem and need to switch to diesel at least then. And to make this seamlessly, we have to do this at a certain point so that we can go on with our diesel traction. So those are the two things for the APCo, the automatic power change over electric to diesel and diesel to electric. And for the switch from diesel to electric, there is also defined in the sectional appendix rules a signage for a manual power changeover. If there is no APCo police to do that for you and you have to do this manually, there can be signage for it. I have not spotted it in the game, probably is not on the represented part of the East Coast Main Line, but it is defined in the sectional appendix. So the manual power changeover would be signed like this. Again, here, manual power changeover signage, diesel to electric. So this has typically no signage if it is done automatically. If you need to do it on your own manually, then it will be signed. Again, it is only applicable for the 800 and the 802 because those are the bi-mode trains. And the first thing, now you will get a warning sign for it. This one. Mind that this sign is not defined in the train driver handbook signaling section. At least I did not find it there, but it is defined and printed in the sectional appendix. And if you watch the streams about the TGV or played the TGV thing on your own, you know that this sign is used in the French signaling system to warn the driver about an incoming power changeover section. So this is used in the British manual power changeover signage sequence, and you can see I've put this here. The Austrian version, or quite like the German version, also uses this idea of two disconnected wires, or one going on one level and the other one on a different level. So this is the idea about a warning sign for an incoming power changeover. Again, in the rules, it is connected with the class 800 because they say they only apply to the class 800 and 802. And this tells the driver that she or he has to prepare for a dynamic manual changeover diesel to electric. Dynamic because we are doing it on the run. We are not stopping the train to perform the changeover, but we are doing it while driving. This is why it is called a dynamic manual changeover, not static. Sometimes with the automatic stuff, it can also work as a static changeover. The train goes to the next stop, stops, and then the changeover procedure is actuated and done. But typically we want to do this without losing time and without stopping the train for it. So it is a dynamic. The idea is prepare for it. Don't do it yet. Don't start with it, but prepare for it. And then you get the raised pantograph sign, again, like here, that we know from the general rules. And here you can again get additional information in the sectional appendix that tell you here is an additional sign that tells you about the voltage that you're encountering at this point. So 25k volts, and again the classes that it is applicable to. So unlike the French system where you have this number incorporated in this system, here you have it on an additional sign. And as soon as the front of the train has passed this sign, you would initiate the dynamic manual changeover. And then again, you can encounter a sign like this that tells you at this point it is no longer safe to raise your pantograph. So if you're not done with your dynamic manual changeover sequence at this point, and don't proceed, don't raise the pantograph here unless your speed is reduced to 20 miles per hour. So you actually have to slow down and then raise the pantograph, and then you can go on. So again, here manual power changeover diesel to electric, and as opposed to the automatic power changeover as it is defined in the sectional appendix. I have not found those signs on the line, but the other lines, the reminder signs for switch from electric to diesel, they are in the game and you can see them. And well, for the gameplay perspective, it is a bit sad. For the convenience and ease your conscience perspective, it is safe to ignore them most of the time. And that was today's presentation already. A bit from the a bit of a topic that gets us away from what we really need to play the game, but I always find it interesting to see what the signs that are in the game are actually supposed to say, and even if we are not use them to interact. So we have 10 minutes to wait, so this is probably an opportunity to have a look at the sectional appendix that I was talking about. The sectional appendix is a document that is issued by Network Rail, the company that owns... Oh, come on. I don't want to hear the vigilance 10 minutes. No. If I go to neutral, does it not activate the vigilance alarm anymore? We will see. We will see. PDF, where is it? Yeah. As I was trying to say, the sectional appendix is a very long document. I don't even know how many pages it has. It has 1,292 pages, and Network Rail issues this for different sections of the British rail network, and there are not that many sectional appendices that can be downloaded freely from the Network Rail page. And you can see for what area this one is. You can see here Peterborough, here to Doncaster, there Grantham, Newark, Retford, that is our line. We can also see that there is Nottingham, Sheffield. Well, it does not save us from the vigilance alarm, I'm afraid. Turning it off. It's not a proper procedure, I guess, but it saves us from the vigilance alarm while we are talking about other stuff. You also can see here is Saltburn by the sea, or whatever it is called, Stockton, Darlington. That is the Tees Valley route that we have here, for example. Sheffield, Nottingham, I think this is the Midland route that I don't own yet. So, and for all this stuff, we're getting additional information, and there is this general part at the beginning, after the list of modules, and they also have some modifications or further elaborations on the rules given in the train driver's handbook. Here's always the module telling you what is amended or what additional signaling is used. And for example, you'll find the automatic power changeover sites, the APCos here, with the reminder sign. What I have just told you in the presentation, or later on, those lot of other stuff. Here, for example, it tells you what trains exactly are meant if a speed sign tells you that a certain speed only applies to HST trains or multiple unit trains or diesel multiple units or SPCS or whatever. So the classes of the vehicles are named specifically so that you know for sure what is actually meant on the sign. It tells you what you need to do with animals on the line, where the rules and regulations require that trains be cautioned because of animals on the line. This procedure needs not to be or need not be applied providing that the animals are domestic, for example dogs, deer, or not more than 6 sheep. Important to know. So if it's 6 sheep, you have to caution you have to caution the driver of the trains. If there are only 5 sheep, then you don't need to do that. And all that stuff here, you get the information about where there are axle counters installed on the lines. This is super interesting, actually. And there should be our manual changeover procedure discussed somewhere here further down. It's an interesting number, page 28, set C. There was procedure for in case your GSMR radio is not working. But this gives you an idea of how much information you actually need to process as a train driver probably, or signaler, or someone in charge of all this. So here are the signals that I just told you about, the power changeover signs for the manual way. And then after a while, after you're done with this general information about the line, then you get a part. This is the table A that starts here with explanations what is meant, and then you get actually a description of the line. Here is an index where all the locations can be found, and then after that, where it actually starts here, the lines, how they are connected. And this is actually our East Coast main line. It starts at King's Cross, and then you see all the lines down and up, and the speeds that are applicable, in what directions those lines are supposed to work. And the asterisk always marks the position where the speed change takes place. Potter's Bar, Hatfield, Waltham, Newark, Hitchin, Arsley, Sandy. And here's Peterborough. This is where we started. For example, don't remember where we started, probably here, platform 4, and we went 40 and then across the the crossover with 25, and then on this line. Here you again find the reminder sign for something, and then the line goes on up fast or down fast. Probably we are going down fast, because up fast is typically towards London, down is into the country. Here, APCo zone, commandment, selective, what we have been talking about. Stoke tunnel, and then Grantham. This is where we are working, waiting now. Stopped here in the 100 restriction at platform 2. And so we can go all the way, look at all the crossovers, all the speeds, and the positions. You can always see how much distance is in between. It is given in miles and chains, in case if you wondered about this and are not familiar with the imperial system of giving distances. This is miles and chains, and there are 80 chains to a mile, I think, if I did not forget and did not confuse that, but I cannot tell you how many yards there are to the chain. But I guess this can be figured out on the internet. This is Retford, we have to stay and stop. And then sometimes there will be Doncaster. And this is where the representation ends, and we are only on page 39 of the table A. And you can see it goes on and on and on and on and on and on for all the other lines and sections. So this is a super interesting document, and helps you, well, drive on those lines. And Spectre, you're obviously right. I think this is a very complex job that is often underestimated. Yeah, a lot of things have to work together so that you can perform this job not only reasonably safe.
TPWS and AWS operational.
But so safe that regularly nothing happens and nobody gets harmed. So I can switch off the PDF at this point, and we can maybe go back to our train. And I shortened the wait at the platform. There is only 1.5 minutes left. We still have to wait until we can go on. It actually would be cool if we could get a bi-mode train like the 800 or the 802, so that we can actually perform power changeovers with the Azuma or the A train in general. There is a scenario in the East Coast Main Line, right, where you have to stop because of cows on the track. So the no more than 6 sheep rule does not apply to cows, probably. So let's close our doors. And it's really a pity that this brake hold does not really work with a keyboard short. So otherwise you would just hold it pressed when you release your key, your brakes, and then when you're applying power you would slowly release the brake hold to prevent the train from rolling backwards. Should also be handy during coupling and uncoupling procedures where you want to press your train against the coupler without it being pushed back by the springs. And was it here or was it at Newark? Where we can see one of those neutral sections again. Probably behind Newark. Now, it's also cool that the sound changes now when you're driving into a tunnel. Sometimes it is a bit, or it feels a bit overdone when you're just passing underneath a bridge. But I really like that they implemented this. So, we are not stopping at Newark. That means the next thing that we have to prepare for is the 100 speed limit past Newark station before we actually get to this weird level rail crossing, where I still have to find the 100 speed board at this point. The surf's up. What exactly is this supposed to say, CD Radar? The surf's up? Dudes, yes. So maybe we should all get some boards and surf on the top of the train. Is that actually a thing with people surfing on subway trains in Prague? It's not that bad anymore, but we had this problem with S-Bahn services for quite a while. What is obviously extremely dangerous, and it's good that it is not a thing that much anymore. So probably we just should leave the train, grab a board, and jump into the sea. But then we would have to go all the way to Saltburn. Surfing on the roof, yes. Especially in the 90s and early 2000s. We had a lot of casualties then. And the other day I was riding on a train, on the S-Bahn train, and a guy next to me told me about that he lost his son that way. Yeah, in Prague they would lose their head in tunnels. So there are no overhead or overground parts in Prague for the metro. Well, it's a good thing that it is not done anymore, or at least not to my knowledge. For some time this was quite a popular way to get yourself killed. I see, there's only one short section. Okay. What was the idea about flagging us down? Now we are back to green. They used to surf on couplers, so they had cover on them to prevent it. Jeez. So on the couplers at the end of the train then? Or in between the cars? That definitely sounds uncomfortable, yes. And obviously it is an idiotic thing to do. At the end, between cars, they surf still. Oh, right. Well, I guess this is not... Not this... well... People will always find idiotic things to do to get themselves killed. Okay. Approaching Newark station. Passing Newark station. And then let's watch out for the 100 speedboard, if there is any. I still have to find it. Because all of a sudden... Here's the crossing, we are at the 100. I did not see a 100 board. Did you? Now we're back to 125. At this point there is also the spat indicator in real life. That is not in the game, unfortunately. A quite special spat indicator if you read about it in the sectional appendix. Because typically spat indicators warn you that you yourself passed a signal at danger. And that it might be a good idea to stop your train now. But in this case the spat indicator will also go off if a train on the crossing line passed the signal at danger. So here let me go to photo mode shortly for a short while. We just passed. Well, does it work again? Yeah. This sign. Remember from the presentation, this is the advanced sign telling us we are approaching a dead section. And here, photo mode again. Where did they put us here with the camera? Into the field. Here is the wipe one telling us here is where the dead section starts. So let's check if we find those inductors. And here they are. These inductors will tell the train here is a dead section, switch off power. And then after a short while, there should be the next set of inductors telling us, alright, you can switch on power again, and whoop, power is back again, and there is no sign for us. So we know now what those signs mean, but we don't have to do anything because the signaler in the game will never tell us, well guys, at this point the automatic power control does not work, you have to switch off your main circuit breaker on your own. This yellow one stays, so I slow down. Double yellow, slow down to at least 70. But the next one is green, we can go back to line speed. So I'm not entirely sure how this happens. Sometimes you get the double yellow and the next one is green again. Is there actually a train in front of you? If there was a train in front of you, where did it go? Are we actually chasing a train? Here the double yellow switches to green again. Yes. Aspectus says on some services on ECML I have also gotten AWS warnings, although the signal aspect was green all the time. Yeah, I think I have noticed this as well. I thought maybe this is on the part where you have a flashing green, so in case that the signal that can be flashing green is only green, that you get an AWS warning in this case because you do not get the most favorable aspect. But I was not able to confirm that in any way. Sleep prevention, yes, that's true. Well, this is actually a problem with the high speed lines in the game. that they are sometimes a bit prone to make you sleepy. Makes sense. That's why the DSD DVD is also on all the time, yeah. Yeah, with the vigilance, when you're standing still and putting the reverser to neutral, I don't think that the vigilance should be on then. Why would it be? So, we mustn't forget to slow down to 115 before we get to Retford. And my slowdown marker was always a lot with a bluish truck between two bridges. What is obviously not working in real time because the blue truck wouldn't always be there. But even without the blue truck, I think you can recognize this part. A sheep could run into the train while standing still, yeah. But I can't see how the vigilance device can prevent that. 5 years. But not more than 6. So I think this is the part where we're getting closer to the thing with the bluish truck. Here are the bluish trucks. So that means I'm coasting from here. Yeah, but with things like with the vigilance device, you can never be sure how this actually works on the specific train, so I'm reluctant to say this is wrong or not prototypical. It just seems a bit odd. Hello, fellow Azuma from the other direction. So now I'm expecting the Morpeth board for the 115, and here we are. To be honest, I find this route quite difficult to memorize. Even though there are only like 3 stops in between and 2 or 3 points where you have to slow down for a speed limit. I'm always confusing it. Also here, I never know when I should activate the minimum brakes to slow down for Retford station. Probably the second signal after the tunnel, that will be that one here. Let's see where it takes us. Maybe it would have been okay to wait until the next signal. Oh well. We're not really in a hurry, we still have a lot of time until we have to get to Retford. And now they are flagging us down with yellow aspects anyway. Flashing double yellow, that means we're diverging. And there is an approach control signal, I think, before we diverge to one of the loop lanes. Next one will a single flashing yellow. There it is. And the next one should be a steady yellow with a feather. A direction indicator. But I never know exactly what the overspeed sensor loops are testing us for. So I guess 40 should actually be okay. We approach here with 40. I can see the feather. I cannot see the signal, but I can see the feather. And it is dark. And now it turns on yellow. That is also a weird thing. This should not be road. It was only lit the feather and it was dark until we got to the magnet, and then it switched on the yellow aspect. It should have been yellow all the time. I think I remember someone talking about this on the forum. So this, I'm quite confident, is a bug. Again, remember we have 10 cars. Go all the way to the end of the platform. And don't forget that the starter signal at the end of the platform is red. So any overspeed sensor loop. Oh no, ours is actually yellow already. Or is it not ours? No, it is actually not ours. So ours is still red. That means we can already turn on our DRA. It's a bit funny that when you stop at the stop marker here, you're actually fouling that switch. Though always made me stop in front of this junction. But here you can see it in the corner. The stop marker wants you to go all the way. Here we can see through our window. Stop marker for all trains. I'm always super reluctant to stop a train like this on a switch, even if it is just a switch that goes to whoever's front yard across this gate. Signal change to yellow with the feather on position 4. But I really like how the stations are made. Well, he's a bit indecisive, huh? Doesn't like the rain even though he has an umbrella up. Please make up your mind. Well, I have to close the doors anyway. Okay. Yeah, true. The rear lights on this train, the tail lights should not be on, obviously not on this and that. So if I was to do this properly, I should start at the end of the train and make sure that all the caps in between are set up properly. Don't forget to relieve the DRA, otherwise we won't be able to start. So, can we go out with 40 here, or will there be a 25 crossover? Probably we can go with 40, because I can't see a sign. This would have been in the sectional appendix. Don't forget that we have 2 train sets. I've actually managed to condition myself not to look at the permitted speed thingy on the HUD. If you tell yourself often enough that there is no such thing as a speed limit indicator on the HUD, then you don't look at it anymore. So I think the marker for slowing down for the 110 limit before we get to Doncaster is 3rd signal past the loop. Someday I should make a video about all the different types of level crossings. And the signage that comes with it. Here is the loop, or the loops, because they are on both sides. Class 66 train, not in the loop, but coming from the other direction, and now count the signals. For once I don't want to miss it on stream. First signal. Second signal. And the third signal, if I'm not mixing up anything, has a cinder block building or something of that kind next to it. That is always quite a landmark. Let's see if that is true or whether I'm mixing up things again. No, actually it is that building that I meant. So I will have the train coast and see if we get to the 110 just by the gradient. Here again a warning about an incoming neutral section. Wah! It was not enough. By far not enough. Here is the neutral section, and you can't see the line bolt light go off in the dead section. And I think you should be able to do that, or this should happen. So, if we don't get slowed down by yellow aspects, we can actually run at line speed until we get in the area where we have 4 tracks again. Yeah, well, whatever can be said about Train Sim World 4, I think that the rain and fog, mist graphics are really good. I really enjoy driving in the rain. So, probably we should start slowing down. We're already in the area with the 4 tracks. Soon we will have that lake on the right. And then we should probably get our first double yellow. Here's the lake. And no reason for getting a heart attack. This red one is not ours. Ours is the double yellow, yeah. Now going through the yard area, there is quite long. Unfortunately, it always gets a bit laggy here, because it's actually a nice place with a lot of stuff happening. Now that we're getting a thunderstorm, obviously there's even more happening. Now we should get our single yellow at the end of the yard. At the gantry in front of us. And then behind the bridge there is an approach control signal from red. So the red ones in front of us are not for us. They are for the lines to the left. We're actually getting countdown boards for the next signal. It's also an interesting fact in the sectional appendix. It says that on certain signals there are countdown boards provided, especially on signals that have a history of being past the danger. Here's our red signal now. I don't know if it's this or next to it. Oh no, please don't crash. Alright. Here is an overspeed sensor loop. And a lot of red signals. One of them is ours. Here is the first 3-strike countdown board. 2-strike countdown. Slow down to 15 at the AWS magnet, and then it actually should switch to yellow. Yes. 1-strike countdown board, and we're going position 1. That means we can go 35. Here the feather can actually tell you for what speed you have to prepare. Position 1, this one, is 35. And position 2, the one to the far left, you would have to slow down to 25 because you're going on the other side of the platform. And this is slowed down to 25 even. So we are going straight at the next switch and not to the left. Again, all the way, because we are at 2 trains at a train. AWS magnet. This is the stop for 5 cars, probably, even though there is not a marker for class 800. Class 800. Here says all class 800 trains have to go to the end of the platform. And here we are. Let's wait a second until the service is finally done. Then we can check the area for some of the signs that we have discussed today. Flop, and we are already out, and I cannot use Oh, here am I speeding because I was actually too slow in slowing down. Nevertheless, we got a platinum medal here. Return to free roam. Let's see if I can sit in the second man seat and use the external cameras, but I can't, unfortunately. Why can I not use the external cameras? I thought this was or used to be possible. Ah, I can use the camera 3, but not the camera 8 anymore. Oh no, I can. Interesting. What was that? Now we need to be fast though, because the train will be leaving the represented area soon. And here, for example, you can see a reminder sign telling you if the automatic changeover from electric to diesel did not work on a class 800 train, you have to do it manually from here. Switch to diesel. Here, same sign for those two. Probably for the ones that are going off to the right here. Here, for some reason, we have two signs of that kind in short succession. Okay, I can't go here anymore. Well, but you got the idea. So especially for all, or for many of the lines that are diverging off the main line, you will get those reminder signs that you are leaving the area where you get your juice from the overhead catenary. So for some reason I seem to be stuck here because I cannot go back to... Oh, I can. But interestingly, they put me on the floor. Train is running. I cannot move. Well, weird things are happening with the cameras. Vigilance is kicking in. And while we are running out of the represented area... No, we don't do that because I will lose my medal if we do that. I go back to main menu. Sometimes at least this does not register if you are kicked out and not go back to the main menu. I think this was the stream for today. It was a bit of a weird stream when it started because of the problems with OBS. But finally we made it. I hope you enjoyed it a bit, talking about the overhead line equipment signs, even if it does not actually prompt us to do anything in the game. But it was at least enlightening for me to understand how those signs are used. Let's dive in. Yes, let's go to the sea, pick our board and out. Absolutely, thanks a lot for the stream. See you. Spectre, thank you very much for joining. CD Radar, thank you very much. AJ, you might be asleep already. Thank you very much for helping me with the OBS in the beginning. Thanks everybody else, and have a nice time until next week. I hope I make it back to the stream next Sunday. Take care.